Here is what 8 years of research does to a person. You stop being surprised. You stop expecting the record to be clean. You start recognizing patterns the way a doctor recognizes symptoms. Not one or two. A pattern, a system. And what I am about to show you is exactly that. A timeline, not a theory, not a conclusion. A documented sequence of events spanning 124 years that answers a question most people have never thought to ask. Why do you still pay for electricity? The specific result I need you to understand before this video ends. By the time I walk you through this timeline, you will know exactly what happened, when it happened, and who made each decision. You will also know what is still available to you right now in the public domain. That matters. Because this is not just history, this is a map. Our 1902, that is the year this starts. Not with Tesla himself, but with a decision. A meeting, a letter. J.P. Morgan had been funding Nikola Tesla's work at Wardenclyffe Tower for 3 years. The tower was nearly complete. The plan was wireless electricity transmission, free at the point of use, distributed without wires, without meters, without billing infrastructure. Morgan was not a philanthropist. He was a businessman. And at some point in 1902, he ran the numbers. A system that transmits power wirelessly and freely cannot be monetized. There is no meter to install, no billing cycle to run, no customer to charge. So he stopped. Not quietly, deliberately. Tesla lost funding in 1903. The tower was demolished in 1917. The patents went into the public record. And for 124 years, the knowledge those patents contained has been sitting in public domain, legally accessible to any person on Earth with an internet connection and 30 minutes of time. That is not dramatic language. That is the documented reality. Here's something I do not hear many people say out loud, and I want to say it clearly. The suppression of free energy technology was never one event. It was never one villain. It was a series of decisions made by different people in different decades for the same reason: economic protection. Each decision was rational from inside the system that made it, which is exactly what makes the pattern so hard to dismiss. 1914. World War I disrupts independent research across Europe. Hermann Plauson, working on atmospheric electricity harvesting in Germany, loses institutional support. Where his research continues. Quietly. In 1920, he publishes a patent, German patent 253,562, describing a method for harvesting static electricity from the atmosphere using elevated aerials. The patent is documented. It is real. Most engineers alive today have never heard his name. I want to stop here. This is the kind of moment in research that either exhausts you or keeps you going. I remember the first time I found Plauson's name. I was sitting in a university library archive in 2018, reading microfilmed documents from a 1947 electrical engineering journal. His work was cited in a footnote. One footnote. In a paper that itself had been withdrawn from general circulation. I pulled the withdrawal date. No date listed, just not available. That is not an accident. That is a choice. Subscribe now if you have not already. I release documented suppressed methods every week. Most people find this channel too late. 1931. Thomas Henry Moray is operating out of Salt Lake City. He has built a device he calls the radiant energy device. Independent witnesses observed the device produce 50 kilowatts of output with no visible fuel source. Moray applies for a patent. The patent is denied. The stated reason is that the device violates accepted principles of electrical science. That is the official record. That is the documented record. What happens next is also documented. In 1931, a Salt Lake City police report was filed at Moray's residence. 2 lines, shots fired, no arrests, no follow-up, no investigation outcome on record. I have the reference number. I present it as a documented event, not as a conclusion. The circumstances of what happened to Moray's research after 1931 remain disputed. What is not disputed is that the device was never commercially produced, the patent was never granted, and the technology never reached the public. 1948. A research paper is published by an independent physicist working on resonant frequency transmission. I requested this paper through a university archive in 2019. The title existed in the catalog, Author listed. Year confirmed. Physical copy not available. Reason given. Withdrawn from circulation. I have now found 11 papers in this category. 11. Each one in a different decade. Each one on a topic that intersects with wireless transmission, atmospheric harvesting, or ground-based electrical generation. Once is administrative. Twice is coincidence. 11 times is a pattern. It's 1951. The year electrical engineering textbooks changed. I own 2 editions of the same foundational textbook, the 1962 edition and the 1978 edition. Same title, same publisher, same listed author. In the 1962 edition, Chapter 7 covers resonant frequency transmission in 12 pages of technical detail. In the 1978 edition, that chapter does not exist. The chapters around it are renumbered. No note, no explanation, like it was never there. I am not telling you the author was bribed. I am not telling you the publisher was pressured. I am telling you that between 1962 and 1978, 12 pages of specific technical instruction disappeared from a standard engineering curriculum text, and no record of why exists. You are an adult. You can assess that information yourself. 1973, the oil crisis. The public begins asking questions about energy independence for the first time at scale. Independent researchers see an opening. Patents are filed. Community experiments are run. Some produce measurable results. Then the crisis ends. The price of oil stabilizes. The urgency disappears. The research quietly loses funding again. Not suppressed this time, just quietly abandoned, which is a different mechanism, but produces the same result. Here's the pattern I want you to hold in your mind. Every decade, different actors, different mechanisms, same outcome. The technology that would allow a household to generate its own electricity without a utility company does not reach the market. Sometimes it is a withdrawn patent. Sometimes a defunded research program. Sometimes a textbook chapter that disappears. Sometimes it is simply a crisis that ends before the public pressure becomes irreversible. By the time you reach 2026, you are paying for electricity through a billing infrastructure that has not fundamentally changed since 1903. The meter on your house operates on the same basic principle as the meters Morgan's engineers designed when they built the grid. You are charged for every unit of electricity that passes through that meter. And the methods that would allow you to bypass that meter have been sitting in public domain for over a century. In 2017, I interviewed a retired utility engineer, 30 years at a major power company. I will not use his name. He told me something I have thought about almost every day since. He said the company kept an internal document called the suppression index, a list of technologies being monitored. Not studied, monitored. He said, and I remember this clearly because I wrote it down immediately, we were not watching them because we thought they worked. We were watching them because we could not afford for anyone else to decide that. I cannot tell you that every item on that list is viable. I cannot tell you that every invention in this timeline would have worked at scale. Some of them probably would not have. But that is not the point. The point is that the decision about what was viable was never made by the science. It was made by the economics. And those are 2 completely different standards. Here is what is still available to you right now. Plauson's 1920 atmospheric harvesting patent is in public domain. The earth battery methods documented in agricultural records from the early 20th century are in public domain. The Tesla patents that Morgan tried to bury are in public domain. These are not secrets. They are just unfindable unless you know exactly what to look for and where. This channel documents exactly that. The methods, the patents, the documented history, in order. Without the conclusions, I cannot prove. I will tell you what the record shows. You decide what it means. If this timeline surprised you, if you got to the end of it and realized that the reason you pay an electric bill is not technological necessity but economic architecture, then share this video with one person. One person who pays too much for power, because that is all it takes to start changing what people accept as normal. Subscribe. Watch the next video in this series, and if you want to go deeper, the practical setup that costs $3 and generates measurable ground voltage is in the next video. Same documented method, step by step. Full tutorial. This channel uses AI-assisted tools in content production. The persona Dr. Elena Ward is a creative construct used for educational storytelling purposes.